Welcome to Empower Hour. Let's get growing. Good morning. Jen Mar here, Soulful Prosperity Coach. I am feeling so good. I hope that you are feeling so good as well. You all know Friday is my favorite day of the week because number one, I don't work and I spend it with my granddaughter. But it also means that I have successfully put in Monday through Thursday what most people can do in 2 weeks, because that's how I like to pack my Monday through Thursday. And it just feels so good. Feels so good. And I have been on this tangent about time and this discovery that we are all basically deluding ourselves into thinking we just don't have the time to work on our deepest desires, those projects that we want to accomplish. I could go on and on. When I'm speaking to entrepreneurs and business owners on a daily basis, and we're talking about their deepest desires or the next project they want to implement or the next business they want to start, I hear it all day, every day. I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time. And this is really, like I said, it is disempowering. We are the master. We are the creator of our lives and our time. And so I came up with this time efficiency breakthrough audit. I don't care if you do that. I don't care what you do, but take the time to really look at where you are investing your time, how you are investing your time. Literally, time is very simply a result of your choices. How you are spending a time is a result of the choices that you are making on a daily basis. And so today, actually, if you can put that banner up, the time audit, because I want to encourage as many people to do this. I realize when I'm on this mission to empower over 1 million people, tap into their highest potential, level up to the best version of themselves, I realize I need to do this through entrepreneurs and business owners, right? Because this is where my sphere lies. But I also realize that really helping people organize their time, prioritize their time, become more efficient, have the courage and the faith to put the things that make you feel good first, bring you joy first. You guys, I have spent the entire summer putting my joy first. I have been kayaking almost every single day. I have been doing the things that make me feel amazing. Now, I had a very established morning routine and evening routine. So I'm talking about beyond those morning routines and evening routines, still putting the joy and the things that make me feel good first. And guess what? I still have a ton of time to grow my business and to do all the things that are super important. And so this sort of leads me to today's guest, because one of the things I've had a deep spiritual practice for about 20 years, and about 4 years ago, maybe 3, I was working with a coach, John Cheplack, who I had worked with in the past, but I was ready, right? When the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I think I have lipstick on my teeth. He taught me, or he implemented or instilled in me, that when you start to put your physical health first, everything falls into place. And for me, this helped me with my time efficiency, but it also deepens my spiritual practice. It deepened pretty much everything about me, gave me more confidence, gave me more energy. And you know how I feel about time management. It's BS. Even though here I am talking about time management, it's energy management. It all boils down to energy management. So if you're using things that deplete your energy, there's a word for it that I can't think of. I wanted to say innovators, but I don't think that's it. It's the opposite. If you're using things that deplete your energy, like alcohol, binge watching, blah, 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 scrolling, all these things actually zap your energy. You're going to get so much out of today. And it's not, I'm sure so many of you go to the gym and so many of you have all these other routines, but we're going to get into this on a much deeper level. So I'm going to bring up my new friend, Patrick Ryan from Awareness Fitness Coaching. Patrick has come up with a completely accessible and different way to focus on your physical health. And I'm not going to give it all away. I'm just going to bring him on stage. So I'm very excited. We've gotten to know each other through our mutual friend, Brian Bogert. Love you, Brian. And Patrick, I am so excited to have you here. We had such a great conversation on the podcast, Soulful Prosperity podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So please bring in anything I may have left out, which is probably everything. And welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Good Friday morning to you and good Friday morning to everybody here. Starting off this morning on a strong note. I actually don't think you really missed anything. It was a beautiful, beautiful introduction and provides a really helpful segue into mine and your conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, picking up from where you left off, there were a lot of really helpful golden nuggets in your introduction and really talking about this distinction between, as you said, time management and energy management. I love that, right? Because if we're not taking an active, open, compassionate audit of where our energy is directed, especially as high performers, as people who are service driven, that are heart driven, that are leading from the heart and being able to make an impact, like you're saying, from the entrepreneurial kind of space, it's going to be really hard to impact people if we're not taking a mindful audit of that energy. So, continuing to, go ahead.
No, because I'm afraid, you know what the thing is too, Patrick? We think like there's the procrastinators, the people who never actually step into their power, build their business, become high achievers, become high performers, right? So then the people who have done this kind of think they're the ones who are almost the more guilty of saying, I just don't have the time.
Sure.
Because they are so busy and they are doing so much. And it's really about, continuing to evaluate, reevaluate, and really understand and have mastery over your time. And the things that you're going to talk about are helping. But I want to plant that seed because a lot of the people that watch this are high achievers. And you think, oh, well, that's not me, right? No, you guys are the most guilty because you can almost validate the fact that you don't have time. But this is something we are just deluding ourselves with.
Right.
Yeah. Take it from there.
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. And I think the real art to what you're talking about is being able to transition in and out at any given time that is necessary between working in your life and in your business and working on your life and on your business, right? As entrepreneurs, I can speak from my own experience. We're guilty of maybe getting caught up in, like you said, feeling as if we don't have the time we need to work on our life and our business. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about is me essentially taking a piece from Brian Bogert's world around this concept he talked about as far as work-life integration. And instead of striving for work-life balance, which tends to be more of this kind of on-off switch.
And it's exhausting. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a black and white approach to trying to figure out how, what kind of persona you need to bring into work. And then when you're done with work, you got to take one mask off and put another mask on and then go into your regular life and who you are. But building more of that work-life integration that allows for, I like to view it as more of like a dimmer switch approach. So you're able to make that artful transition from working in your life and knowing that it's fueled by a healthy fuel source, to your point earlier in the introduction, as far as assessing what your physical health is looking like at that current moment in time, what your nutritional health, and then
Yeah.
what we'll talk about today is the 6 other dimensions of what myself and my wife call your deep health, and running a deeper audit on that, so you have an understanding of what kind of fuel source you're building for yourself when it comes to not just working in your life, but being able to, in this conversation, to zoom out and work on your life, do that kind of deeper audit so you can get a sense of what kind of direction and fuel source you're building in and through your business, if that makes sense.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Cool. So, you touched on, which is not, it's not a bad thing at all. This is the area of our deep health that most of us, we pick up on, we are able to grasp, we are able to understand, is the physical domain of our deep health, right? That's what you talked about. Like when you're working with your coach, you were able to get a better understanding of when you focus on, at least as an initial starting point, taking care of your physical health first. Everything, especially as you continue to give that energy, everything else starts to fall into place.
Yeah.
Which is so huge. So my intention behind today's conversation is continuing to add more depth and dimension to that. And I think from mine and my wife's experience, and we work with high performing helpers as well, people that are entrepreneurs, people that are running businesses, people that are vice presidents of their company, helping them get an understanding of what other dimensions of their health that they can focus on that's not just their physical health. Because I can speak from my own personal experience to where, while working on your physical dimension of your health, that being your exercise, your movement, and your nutrition, is super helpful, right? Like that's a necessary component of what we're wanting to do. It can sometimes perpetuate a level of exhaustion when we've tried those diets, we've tried those workout routines, and they haven't quite gotten us the level of, I guess you could say, sustainability or consistency with those habits that maybe we would want. So to kind of give a brief overview of what Meg and I call the 7 dimensions of deep health, yes, physical dimension is one of them. That's your physical health, that's your nutritional health, but that actually only represents 14% of what's actually needed to build that depth and build that consistency in your overall health, fitness, and wellness routine. Another dimension that is worth considering is stuff like your social health. So the kind of relationships that you currently have, right? A lot of this is looking at it through the umbrella of just running a compassionate audit of what your life looks like currently. So your social health, your environmental health, your existential or your spiritual health, your financial health is super, super important. And then your mental and your emotional health. Wow. So really kind of breaking things apart a little bit in a few different, or in this case, 7 different dimensions of your health, and taking time to, what you're talking about earlier in the call, really working on your life and just putting together an assessment of where each one of those 7 dimensions lie. I'm really big on putting pen to paper. I call it making the intangible tangible. Being high performers and being super busy, it's easy for us to keep things in our head all the time, which, to your point, can deplete us, can take a lot of bandwidth and take a lot of energy away from us. So I think starting by just journaling and writing down each one of those 7 dimensions. And during the course of this conversation, I can throw some questions out there as far as questions that you can ask yourself as far as what each one of those dimensions look like and how it's either positively, negatively, or even neutrally impacting your ability to stay consistent with, say, the workouts and the nutrition that you need to be utilizing on a consistent basis.
I love it. So good. So good. So where did you come up with these 7 levels?
Yeah. So a lot of this is due to continuing ed that myself and my wife have taken part in. So, I can go back to referencing my own journey in some ways. So to give you all context, obviously as an online fitness professional, my roots and my origin story started in the personal training space, training clients in person out here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because like most individuals, it's not inherently a bad thing. I started with the understanding of, okay, I need to start by taking care of my physical fitness. I need to start by staying consistent with my exercise, which then led to me getting a little bit more deeper understanding of my nutrition. However, with that one domain, which is super important, it only represented about 14% of the greater whole of what was needed. And in my early to mid 20s, I started to feel that something was missing from my fitness routine personally. Exercise and diet for me was getting to a point where I was realizing this is not enough. Like there are missing pieces to this puzzle that I need to really search for and figure out how to integrate. So that essentially led me on a journey, as we all are as high performers. We want to continue to learn. We want to continue to source more information that can not only help positively impact ourselves, but in the case of myself and my wife in the online coaching business we run, be able to positively impact other people so they don't have to go essentially 5 to 10 years in the case of my journey, really trying to figure this out and shorten that kind of curve. I see
3 years, okay?
Right.
3 years. Oh.
Yeah. So the intention behind going through so much trial and error on my end is really helping people condense decades into days, right? Decades of hard work and trial and error that we've gone through into days of work that our clients have to do. So they're not having to spend, like you said, 3, 5, 10 years trying to figure this out. So it just was a lot of research, a lot of continuing ed work and getting an understanding of like, oh, I always had a more holistic, mindfulness-based approach to how I would coach clients, because when I was coaching clients in person, although coming and seeing me and doing workouts and working through workout plans and nutrition plans was helpful, it was better than nothing. I was coming to find that my clients were still not really getting to the goals that they were wanting to get to in as seamless of a fashion. So it let me know really early on that, okay, I actually think as a coach, I need to be focusing on the 23 hours of the day that my
Yes.
clients aren't working with me that really drives the change. So that it was really sparked by curiosity around how I could help my clients, as well as going through my own personal trial and error and figuring that out for myself.
I love that. And I have a similar approach in the fact that I've realized that so many business owners, entrepreneurs go to coaches, go to seminars, go to these events, or, you know, hang up with their coach and they're all excited, feeling great, totally get it. Everything lands, completely resonated. They're pumped. And then they step into life and they're unable to implement, which I think is what you're talking about. And so my approach is not just the coaching, but it's also the structure and the implementation and the guidance to be able to do that. So when you lead me, you're able to actually implement these ideas into your life. And it sounds like these 7 levels, really that's what they're doing, right? Really making sure that this is a reality, right? Not just a pie in the sky type thing.
100%. That the key point you're making there is that implementation, right? And it doesn't surprise me that you have that coaching practice or coaching ethos when it comes to wanting to make sure you're guiding your clients in a way that allows them to be in a space at the time that they're, say, done working with you, to where they know they still have the tools they need to integrate those things into everyday life. Because like you said, that transition from, in many cases, working on your life and your business and then having to go back into real life can be really jarring, and it can be really difficult if we don't have the tools necessary to assess where we need to be putting our energy, right? You talked about energy management, and that's why having a little bit more of a well-rounded approach and a more robust and diverse, we'll call it, set of tools or tool chest, so to speak, through these 7 dimensions of deep health can be really helpful, because there are going to be instances and times in our clients' lives and your audience lives where putting more time, effort, and energy solely in their exercise and their nutrition is actually not needed. It actually, in some cases, can cause more stress. It can cause more complications in their journey rather than complement it. So it gives each individual an opportunity to assess, well, of these 7 dimensions, what do I actually need to be dedicating more of my time, energy, and resources toward, instead of feeling pigeonholed to just go back to the same spot relative to the physical domain, which for a lot of people, I don't know about you or people that you've come across, but for myself and my wife, coaching clients can tend to perpetuate a lot of growing resistance and wanting to get back into exercise and nutrition, because all they've known is that's what they have to go back to. So this kind of diversifies their options to where it's like, well, if I'm not in a space where I really need to be pushing super hard with exercise and nutrition, I can assess my social health. I can assess how my relationships are and whether or not those are actually nourishing me or they're draining me, depending on what season of life you're in. Your environmental health, take an assessment of your space. What do things look like on the home front? What kind of people are occupying that space with you, whether you have a roommate, whether you have a significant other. That's that blend of social and environmental. There's a lot of adjustments that can be made to those other 6 dimensions that can really serve as a higher return on your time investment than just going back to exercise and diet alone.
Yeah, and I keep using the word levels, but the word dimensions just makes so much more sense because they are kind of like realms, One of the things that was such a gift to me, I came across Kundalini yoga somewhere. And of course, being me, I couldn't just go to a Kundalini yoga class. There are none near me anyway. But anyway, I had to go become certified. So I trained with Guru Singh, who's an amazing guru, who's actually Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a Kundalini yoga practitioner. But for me, and this is for me, Kundalini yoga incorporates breath work, meditation, chanting, which I am a huge fan of. It does all kinds of things, amazing things for you physiologically, and moving your body. And so that, so in a half an hour every morning, and journaling is a big part of Kundalini yoga too. I'm literally like checking off how many of those dimensions.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah, I love where you're coming from there, because then that kind of helps people understand that through, at least what I'm hearing from you, Jen, is like you're able to lead with curiosity, right? Which is a huge component of what myself and Megan run into and try to help our clients really navigate, because the conventional mainstream fitness industry does a really, really good job of making people think that the only valid way to get a workout, to take care of their diet or whatever it might be, has to be at a gym. It has to be through the form of a gym membership. Whereas what I hear from you is like, you're kind of curious about what other options there are as far as getting movement in. And in your particular case, you're able to find, holy cow, like this helps check so many other boxes outside of just exercise alone. And that's what we essentially want, is we want to be able to build that work-life integration to where that the activities that you're taking part in check so many other boxes than just the physical. And then at that point, you're just living your life. You're just doing the things that you normally like to do. And everything else, when it comes to all those other dimensions of your health, are taking care of themselves. So pretty much all you got to do is just show up, do your thing, enjoy your day, enjoy your week, enjoy your month. And everything is unified and integrated.
Yeah, totally. 100%. I love that. And I discovered this a long time ago before I was thinking about all this, but I realized the gym was just an excuse for me, because you had to get in your car and you had to drive there, blah, blah, have your bag ready, have your water ready, have all these things. So many, many years ago, the first thing I did was start running, but running's not great for my body. I have giant boobs and they're getting away. But also, I don't weigh 90 pounds. So the impact is quite heavy. I would do it in the trail running when I could. But I started doing that because it was like, there's no excuse. You throw on your sneakers and you go wherever you are. And so I don't run anymore, but I walk, and I've like gone from 10,000 minimum to 13,000. I was moving up to 15,000 this week, and it was like, no, I was traveling, I'm exhausted, so I've gone back down to 13, but 15, I'll probably go to 14 instead of 15 next. So that's simple. It's like, okay, I just need to go for a walk right now. I just, and making it really accessible and really simple, but also something like walking and running, extremely meditative.
Yep.
Extremely just get rid of the headphones, you guys. You don't, and I get it. I want to listen to my podcast. I want to listen to this, but I encourage you guys to do those sort of exercise, those physical exercise, like my kayaking or like whatever, that's very meditative, very repetitive. Ditch the headphones. You don't need the playlist. Start to get in touch with what's happening in here. And Patrick, don't you agree that when you are in that zone of whatever exercise you're doing and you don't have the playlist going, this is meditation?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a very, very substantial component, like you're saying, of being, I call it movement-based meditation, right? Where sure, we're always going to have the option to listen to music. And it's funny you bring that up as far as like speaking to my own experience. Starting in my mid-20s, I definitely went back and forth between whether or not I felt like I needed music every single time that I worked out, because in some cases listening to music would almost, or having headphones on would almost feel like my experience would become more tunnel vision or more constricted, as opposed to having no music on at all, especially with running, walking, or even lifting weights in a gym or whatever that might look like. Without music, it being a little bit more expansive, it creating a little bit more breathing room and creating a greater ability for me to focus my attention and energy on my body, focus my attention and energy on what muscles are being utilized, what muscles are being engaged, what muscles don't need to be engaged, as well as, to your point, with walking and hiking and running. There's so much other stimulus to really pour your attention and energy into, and building that level of presence that isn't just solely in your head. You're able to take it neck down, connect to your body, and connect to the surroundings around you while you're actively moving and participating. So I think it's worth, encouraging your audience to get outside of their comfort zone and just try that, because then you're having to give your mind an opportunity to focus on something other than what you're listening to in your headphones.
Yeah. And an opportunity to practice not multitasking, because you are. It is multitasking, believe it or not. It sounds silly, but it's not. You have to be listening and, at the same time. And that's not to say I have my playlists and I use them and I love my podcast. And I, when I go kayaking now, I'm in the middle of getting master NLP certification. And then, so yeah, I go out on my kayak and I listen to that and I do things. But then there are some times when I'm just like, okay, this is going to be my meditation today.
Right.
This is going to be my connection with God and the universe today. And just becoming more mindful and connecting those 7 dimensions is what I'm talking about as much as you can, because we have this illusion that we don't have the time. So like I said, when I found Kundalini yoga, I was like, Eureka! I found gold. Like it really just worked for me. And I teach it once in a while just to stay like really on top of my game. And the other thing, and I talk to you about this on my podcast, is making things daily tasks. 3 to 4 days a week becomes 3 days a week, becomes 2 days a week, becomes 1 day a week. Now, I got to start all over again. And we all know how painful that is.
Right.
And there's an expression that I absolutely love. 99% is a bitch and 100% is a breeze. And it's so true. And once, I think it was like 7 years ago, and it was before I started working with John Cheplack, the coach, because my husband is an athlete. And I remember getting together with him like, this hour a day exercise thing is ridiculous. But meanwhile, I had an hour a day meditation practice, but that was his thing and this was mine. So my husband definitely helped instill the importance of the physical health. So when we got together, I made a commitment to a daily workout. And I haven't missed a workout in like 6 years. Now, don't get me wrong. There was like one day here, one day there, but I say it like that. I haven't missed a workout because it is a daily practice. So there have been extreme circumstances where you're traveling all day, but then you look at your phone, I got 17,000 steps, right? Or whatever. So, but that daily, getting into the daily routines, to me, is where it just becomes easy. It becomes non-negotiable. I always say, like, have you ever left your house without brushing your teeth?
Right.
Right? What happens? You literally are like, how do I get to a toothbrush and toothpaste, and how do I do it now? Or deodorant, right? Or these very basics that are non-negotiables. And that these 7 dimensions that you're talking about and the practices that bring you to mastery or close to mastery, it takes daily practice. Do you agree? And what kind of tips do you have?
I really agree with that, because what I love about what you're talking about is you're talking about this overlap in a lot of the terminology, a lot of the ethos of yoga practices, where it reminds me of attending yoga classes and there being a really heavy emphasis on this is a practice, which then leads to a deeper conversation of understanding that your movement that you're taking part in is a practice. It's going to take time to master, which means you have to continue to consistently show up and move in a way to where it's like you're talking about, it's second nature. You don't have to exert really much energy at all in the case of consistently moving every day to do that. So I love that practice element, because I think it gives a little bit more wiggle room for people when it comes to, say, them trying to build that consistency of, in your case, doing it every single day, and giving them a little bit of grace around, this is a practice. Maybe it has been difficult for you to get going on this for a while, but understanding you can always get started in the next 5 minutes. You can always get started in the second half of the day instead of feeling like you got to wait for the next day, the next week, the next month, etc. Another element that I really liked, as far as, you using yourself as an example, is helping people have a deeper contextual understanding of how you're able to build that daily practice, and how it's made much easier for you, at least from what I'm hearing, is you have built an environment, you have built a lifestyle, you have built a social support network that makes daily exercise, I call it laughably available or laughably accessible, right? So when you're finding yourself in a space where you may feel crunched for time, you're always finding yourself in a more resourceful space to find a way to move. You used an example a couple minutes ago as far as being like, oh, I maybe didn't get the exact kind of workout I wanted in, but I also got 15,000 steps in today. I walked a ton. I did, I moved my body a substantial amount, and really finding kind of that silver lining of movement that lets you know, oh, I didn't run at 0 miles an hour when it comes to movement today. I still got some movement in, which checks that box, which can really put us in a more resourceful state for finding a way to get the style of exercise we want to maybe the next day.
Yes, I love that. And even taking an advantage of these practices. So, for example, when I travel now, and we all know how travel is nowadays, it is not like, when airlines first came out, you literally got dressed and you got on the plane and you got a steak.
Right.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
Unless
you're in, first class all the time, whatever. But even then, until you're in that first class seat, you are subject to all kinds of stuff at the airport or however you're traveling. So I started traveling with my yoga mat, and I just don't care. Number one, you can actually lay down on a yoga mat and take a nap at the airport if you need to. Yep. But there I am doing down dog at the gate, stretching myself out, making sure that I have the endurance, I have the stamina, and I'm not ready to kill the the airline attendant at the desk because I'm getting so frustrated and getting so angry. I also travel with my spiritual readings and whatever, right? So making sure to be able to incorporate, even though I don't really know all the 7 dimensions, I'm just getting to know them from you.
Sure.
I already know that this is how I've been living.
Yes.
Really making sure, and then that's what I wanted to say. So the practice is because it's not just about when you're on the mat or when you're in the gym or when you're doing this. All the lessons that you learn in these practices, you can then apply out in your life, like being able to push through pain, being able to push. And I'm not suggesting that you work out till you have pain, but there is some pain involved. Being able to push through uncomfortability, awkwardness, not being perfect, not being graceful, but moving forward and doing it anyway, and then getting those results, and then leveling up, and all of those things. That's to me why it's all called a practice. So I love that you also consider exercise a practice.
Yeah. It has to, right? And all these other dimensions that you're continue to get understanding, like you say, you're already living them. It's just a matter in your case, continue just to put a name to them. And I think that's the case for a lot of people that are trying to build the consistency they want, i.e. that healthy fuel source of a healthy lifestyle that fuels their business and fuels their impact. It's allowing them to assess those 7 dimensions and get an understanding of what areas are strengths for you, what areas need a little bit of improvement, instead of feeling like, which is just so common with a lot of the clients we work with, where they feel like they've got to do we call it a pray and spray approach. Like they got to shoot in all different directions trying to get it figured out, where it's like, well, let's start in the areas that you're proficient at, that you're already familiar with, that are already second nature to you. Let's reinforce those a little bit to increase your level of resourcefulness and joy in the practice. And then let's work on integrating those other pieces. And one thing that I really liked, all I got to say, Jen, is you're my kind of people. And the reason I say that is the fact that you are, and it's crazy that we live in a culture where we have to worry about how other people, well, I'm not saying this is you, just people in general. Like we got to worry about what other people are going to think about us if we're going to go to the airport and fly, and worry about what other people are going to think about us if we bring a yoga mat, or if we bring a foam roller, or we bring a lacrosse ball. And the reason I say that is because your health never leaves you. And that's why it's so important to really take that compassionate audit and assessment of the 23 hours of the day that are not in the gym, and get a better understanding of what's being done during that time. So in the case of you being at the airport, I love it. My wife and I are of a similar lifestyle and behavioral dynamic in that you're using availability to your advantage. So when most people find themselves in this continuous state of mind of feeling like I don't have the time, I don't have the ability to do these things. And a lot of that is perpetuated by viewing certain circumstances and environments as being synonymous with keeping them off track when it comes to taking care of themselves. So the airport is a really, really good example, because travel for most people is synonymous with completely falling off track and not taking care of ourselves. So then they find themselves in a less resourceful state of mind, which then leads them to saying, screw it on this trip. I'm just going to go for it and eat whatever I want and do no movement at all, because it's not meeting this very specific set of criteria that would then justify a legitimate workout. And in most cases, it's like, oh, I have to be at a gym, I have to work out for an hour, which is like, okay, let's look at our own historical past around that. How well has that mindset worked for you in getting you to where you want to go? And if it hasn't worked well for you, then we acknowledge, okay, it's not preferable. How do we start doing something different and start letting go? In the case of the airport, how do we start letting go of worrying about what other people are going to think of us, and just acknowledge, I need to take care of myself. I'm sitting here at a 2-hour layover at the airport. I'm going to move. Like,
Yeah.
and it's super simple stuff as far as bringing a yoga mat with you. I like bringing a small little package of resistance bands to get a little bit
Mm,
of movement on and activate my body and get a little bit of blood flow without feeling like I got to push myself super hard. And to your point, as far as not having the headphones in and all that kind of stuff, even in those instances, you're able to tune into your body and how you feel. So then you're able to create a deeper connection around the activity you're taking part in, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, and acknowledge, holy crap, I feel so much better. And in the case of traveling starts to become less of a mental burden. It starts to become less synonymous with falling off track and feeling worse and feeling like you're having to climb up this mountain to get back in a routine. You're able to kind of smooth out those rough edges of travel. And the same can be said for any other environment that in the past for people might be synonymous with not being able to stay on track. So I love the fact that you're not afraid to stand out in an environment where, as you know, in the case of the airport, everybody's sitting in their chair, they're on a laptop, they're on their phone, they're staring at a screen. I've always wondered, why doesn't an airport have some sort of like a yoga or a movement studio for people to take care of themselves?
well, they're making progress. They do have
Right.
meditation rooms now and
I've
religious.
seen some of them do, yeah.
Yeah, and then also they're bringing in furniture that's actually comfortable. Again, I guess they're realizing like this is the new world order of
Sure.
travel being complicated. But the other thing is too is like if I didn't do that, right? So if I didn't bring the yoga mat and I didn't move or I didn't take the opportunity, like, okay, they just delayed my thing. So I'm gonna go take, a big long walk and stretch and do all these things. What happens is if you just sit there, go get the chips, go get this, go get that, and just like use that time in ways that do not fuel you, right? We talked about this before, the things that energize you or the things that drain your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is then it carries into the next day and the rest of the week. And I've seen that. And because I go back and forth to the Dominican Republic, my brother lives in Colorado. I've been traveling to Europe to see my grandchildren that are Swedish and, all kinds of travel. And it can either completely disrupt your life or you can utilize, and let's not just talk about travel. Let's talk about all the different things. I'll give you a perfect example. I have now been I have not mastered working in 90-minute chunks because I'm remote and I work mostly from my desk in front of my computer. I'm a workaholic. I could sit here for 12 hours, 13, 14 hours and still feel like I haven't gotten everything done.
Right.
So now I'm working in 90-minute chunks. And guess what I do in the breaks? I move. I move my body. And it's made a huge difference. And then when I come back, I am ready. I am fresh. I am creative. I am fun. I am sharp. So it makes a big difference. And I feel like that really goes in with your 7 dimensions.
100%. It makes me think about something my friend Rebecca Rush talks about. And she breaks it down into a simple equation. She said, she put it, blood flow equals brain flow. So we're talking about, as high performers, it's very easy for us to live an existence where we're living from the neck up, right? We're very intellectually minded. We're very performance based from how we look at things. Like I said, it's easy for us to sit and do a lot of work, knowledge work for 8, 10, 12 plus hours a day, and then feel exhausted, right? Which then can put us at an energy deficit, which then makes it even harder to really get that momentum going. And to your point of those 90-minute chunks, as far as like, hey, I'm going to do really focused work for 90 minutes. And then I'm going to give part of my brain a break by going and moving a little bit, getting a little bit of blood flow stimulating, and it being able to, or getting a little bit of blood flow going, and then it's stimulating that brain flow, and it's kind of recharging you and rejuvenating you to jump back in your case, to jump back in to that 90-minute block of work, and seeing how movement in this particular case can really help the sustainability and the consistency and the intensity of the work that you're needing to do, instead of just going at it all day long, and then understandably so at the end of the day finding yourself completely depleted of energy. And at that point, who would want to try and force themselves to work out after an 8, 10, 12 hour plus really, really hard work day?
Yeah. We have a question.
Okay.
What kind of exercise is best for energy?
That's a good question. So I think a lot of the movement-based questions as far as what works best is always going to live under the umbrella of 2 words. It depends. And the reason I say that is I want to go back to part of the conversation, Jen, you and I were having earlier today, as far as leading with curiosity, as far as finding what works for you. But in finding what works for you, I'm always big on lowering the barrier to entry to movement. And much like you talked about earlier in the conversation, Jen, you were talking about how walking and running was the easiest form of movement for you to get started with. And that's usually where I start with people, because then that removes any barrier to entry as far as, oh, you need this piece of equipment, you need to go to the gym, you need, like,
I walk in flip-flops like miles. I'm terrible, but I do.
That's okay, but you're moving, right? When it comes to that kind of stuff, we can dial out and dial in the nuance of that.
Well, Birkenstocks nowadays.
Right. And the fact of the matter is the foundation is you're moving. So if I were to recommend any form of movement to just start with and play around with, as long as your environment and circumstances make it accessible and easy and safe to do, walking. Like, it's a great opportunity to get outside. If you're working from home or doing remote work, get outside your house, walk around your block a couple times, get a little blood flow going, and try to pay attention to, like your listener was asking, to boost energy. Try to just pay attention to how that makes you feel. Another option would be light stretching. That's something you don't even need to leave your house for. You could go to a different room or do it in your room. Light stretching, self-massaged. You don't need a piece of equipment to do it initially. You can just feel around your body and start to feel where you have tension, and tune
yoga, Pilates,
yes,
bar work, weightlifting. Like, you can just, get the smaller weights or the bigger weights. Like, there's so many things that you can do very inexpensively that are very accessible.
Right.
And like you said, figure out what works for you. Now, I get bored. So, I've been on Kundalini yoga the longest. So I think I found it, right?
Right.
But also the movement. But for years, those first few years when I was like with a personal trainer, then the Peloton, then I bought the mirror, then because I don't actually enjoy it. But now I found something that lights me up.
Right.
So yeah, like you said, be in that curiosity. The other thing is taking advantage. Like, I don't feel like exercising today, but you know what? My closet needs cleaning out. All that stuff needs to go up to the attic. The kitchen needs housework isn't incredible, which brings you to that environment, right? Making sure your environment is impeccable.
Right.
And it's an amazing form of exercise and movement. And then you're checking off another dimension, making sure. All right, so we have a couple other questions. Let's see.
Okay, great.
Where did they go? Oh, do you do breath work, and what are your thoughts on it?
That's a great question. Yes, I do. That is something that it's funny because it's something that I have done intermittently for, I'd say, the past 10 years or so, but it's really interesting in that I want to say over the last 6 months, it's reached a level of what I call compounding interest, where breath work and meditation has become a really regular part of my day, and more so myself and my wife are big on what we call the 5-minute rule. And I use that 5-minute rule a couple times a day for me to just center, get in tune with my breath, and get in tune with my body. Really, really great, at least for me, for nervous system regulation. So, Jen, you were talking about doing 90 minutes of hard work and then having to shift to another task or another activity. I've really found that it's very helpful for me when I'm switching from one task to the other to just give myself 5 minutes, close my eyes, and just breathe for a little bit so I can recenter rather than just jumping from one task to the other, which for me at least can really overstimulate my sympathetic nervous system, which then can leave me in a heightened state of like oversensitivity and tension. But yes, breath work has been a really, really wonderful addition to we'll call it my wellness and fitness routine.
Yeah, agree. Me too. I do it throughout the day, and I also use it when I begin to feel agitated, triggered, or any of those things, and it brings me back and connects me to that highest version of me.
Mm-hmm.
It also is a detoxifier. It is eliminating old oxygen and bringing in new, fresh life, new life. Pranayama, which is breath work in, I think, Sanskrit, Pali, I think Sanskrit, literally means life force energy. And so taking that time, you're going to feel rejuvenated. You're going to feel refreshed. You're going to feel stronger. You're going to feel connected. You're going to feel grounded. You're going to feel all those things. I'm a huge, huge, huge believer in breathwork. Okay, so what else we got? This one came in from the group. How do I conduct a time audit? I'll do that at the end.
Okay.
There was another question. Oh, I love this one. What role do you think coffee plays in energy and productivity?
Sure. I think it's always going to play a role depending on what your preferences are. I think the main thing is I guess the best way I can put it, when it comes to the diet and nutrition related stuff, I am what they call a diet agnostic. And what that means is it's my job as a coach to adopt a more neutral standpoint around any food that you consume, any supplement you consume, and help you get a better understanding of how it works for you and finding ways to make sure it works for you. And if it doesn't, helping you find a way to, wean off of it in the case of caffeine. So as far as coffee is concerned, I think it's great if it's serving you and if it's not, overstimulating your nervous system to the point to where you're drinking too much a day, or you're becoming really dependent on it. Say in the case of like maybe you're not focusing as much time and energy on sleep, which we could really focus on improving that dimension of your health to the point to where maybe you aren't needing as much coffee, or you may not be needing as much caffeinated coffee and you're able to drink maybe a little bit more decaf. That's really kind of the perspective I like to adopt when it comes to coffee, whether it be caffeinated or any supplement. So it has its place. And it has its place based on your unique set of needs. The only other thing I would recommend just paying attention to, I'm not a coffee drinker. Megan is, so she can speak to it a little bit more. However, a lot of our clients are coffee drinkers, is just paying attention to what you're consuming in conjunction with that coffee. You know, a good example will be, I laugh because I love milkshakes. Okay. And I'll tie this in here in a moment, but like I've seen some of the coffee orders people will make.
Oh yeah.
Places like Starbucks, and you're pretty much ordering a milkshake early in the morning. So again, there's no judgment around that. It's relative to the conversation around coffee and just being mindful of, okay, what am I adding to my coffee?
Yeah.
Like, and
putting it in my body. Yeah.
And getting a sense of if you feel like you're adding too much creamers, too much sugar, too many caramel shots, whatever you're having added to it, playing around with thinking about, okay, instead of wiping it out completely, because that can tend to be a little bit of an overhaul, ripping the rug out from underneath you as far as what you're consuming, just playing around with how can I dial this back just a little bit, and see if you can get to a place where maybe you don't notice much of a difference in taste, and you can continue to dial it back to an area where it suits you better when it comes to like a nutritional standpoint. That would be the only other recommendation I would make around, say, coffee in this case.
Well, yeah, and our government has not done a good job of protecting us from, we act like because the ingredients are listed, but if you don't know what xanthan gum is or all these things, so it's like you think you're ordering oat milk and it's healthy and this is great, but it has vegetable oils, sugars, unknown sugars, vegetable oils, sugars, and other ingredients that you have no idea what they are.
Sure. And to that point, as we were talking about earlier, when it comes to the movement side of things, it's just as applicable to the nutrition side of things, because sure, there are a lot of people who are consuming foods that, understandably so, they may not have as deep of an understanding of what goes into that food, and trying to take it to an area of familiarity for people around just trying to pay attention to when you're consuming that food. Not only does it not only paying attention to how it makes you feel energetically, but taking that a few steps further and trying to pay attention to how does that feel digestive wise? Like, how is that affecting your digestion? Are you, quite frankly, my wife's a registered dietitian, so this is the world we live in. What kind of bowel movements are you having? Are you having regular bowel movements? Like, and just reverse engineering as far as like, oh, did I drink nothing but coffee today with all these extra creamers and caramel pumps and all this kind of stuff? Did I have any fruit? Did I have any, you know what I mean? And just taking a deeper assessment of digestively, how are the foods that you're consuming impacting your energy, your digestion, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then balance it too,
Yes.
Well, I'm at a place, I'm 53. I want to look good. I want to feel good, but I want to eat my potato chips, So I've made a simple switch to, they have to be avocado oil or olive oil.
Gotcha.
And first of all, they're harder to get, right? So you don't have as much instant access, but I feel good and better about it when I'm eating them. And just so for me, I don't have, and the 7 dimensions, right? You really can't master all of them. And I love how you said that earlier. Like sometimes you're going to have to pull away from this one and focus on that one. So for me, I'm not going to master nutrition, but I have a really good knowledge of nutrition. So I made a commitment, no vegetable oils, none of the safflower, the canola, the this, which is such a huge commitment in so many ways that you don't realize, because it's in everything. Things that you're like, why would you need oil, granola? Like, why do you need oil in granola? So, I could go on and on. Anyway, so you could go crazy trying to be perfect with all of this, but just, hope I didn't freeze. Just become more mindful, just become more aware, and then feel good about it, and then also balance it. Have the green juice, eat the salad, so it's like, I know I'm going to have chips a few times a week. I love dark chocolate covered raisins, right? So I've elevated at least a little bit my snacks, my junk food to a place that I feel pretty good about. I'm not going back to carob. My father used to make me eat carob. Carob does not taste like chocolate, people, okay? Just go to dark chocolate. You'll be okay.
Right.
Anyway, but balancing it. So, like I said, having the green juice, eating more salads, and doing those things, drinking some chia seed water and lemon water. And I do green tea instead of coffee. And, I still get that energy. Well, this has been amazing. So if there was one message, I don't know how to get rid of that question. Jose, can you get rid of that question? If there was one tip, and I want you to run down the 7 dimensions real quick and then answer one place in the 7 dimensions that you would focus on first for somebody who is looking to make a big change in their life physically?
Honestly, out of all of them, off the top of my head, I've felt this way for a very long time, for the vast majority of my coaching career. Taking a really deep, honest, compassionate assessment of your social dimension of health. And the reason I say that is paying attention to who you are spending time with, not only in person, but digitally, right? We very much have a digital lifestyle at this point in time. And the reason I say that is we've all heard this before. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I would take that a step further in acknowledging you're the average of the 500 people you spend the most time with digitally. And the way that the people that you're spending time with communicate around all the other dimensions of your health, right? Your physical, your mental, your emotional, your environmental, financial, all that, how they're communicating about all those dimensions, whether it's in a positive light or a negative light, is going to influence your own communication and your own behaviors, right? Think of what you and I are engaging in right now, Jen. Like, we're normalizing healthier conversations around our health and fitness and adding dimension around that. So my encouragement is pay attention to who's in your social circle
I
and take
love
that. Yeah,
I love that you interpreted the 5 to the 500 on the internet.
Right.
It blows my mind because I see so many people just getting aggravated, fighting, and this and that. I have a beautiful experience on social media. Now, granted, I'm not scrolling anymore.
Sure.
I'm not, which hurts me sometimes in my business because I'm not catching everything.
Sure.
So I'll find that balance and strike that balance. But this has always been the case. I've always had a beautiful experience online because of who I choose, and immediately block, unfriend, this and that. People I love. Mm-hmm. I've blocked people I love because all of a sudden they get online and they're just like out of their minds.
Yeah.
And I don't need it. I don't need it. So that's very, 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 very wise advice. So
yeah, we call it training your algorithm, and that sounds like that's what you're doing. And I think that's going to be a really key component to helping people stay centered and really filtering in the right people and filtering out the right people that support their long-term health.
I love that. And I talk a lot about algorithms in my coaching. For me, it's if this, then that. And right. So that's what algorithms are. When this happens, that happens. Right. And then when that happens, that happens. And so really training that to have the outcomes that you desire.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So can you just tell us the 7 dimensions before we close up?
Absolutely. In summary, 7 dimensions being the first one being your physical dimension. That represents your physical health and your nutritional health. Next dimension would be your environmental health. So your home, your work environment, where you are in space and how that influences your decisions around nutrition and exercise. Your social dimension of health, the people that you're spending time with, how they influence. Again, all this comes down to how it influences your decisions around exercise and nutrition. So you have your social health, your mental health, how you logistically plan for your day-to-day when it comes to getting movement in, taking care of yourself, creating space to breathe and decompress. Your emotional health, what kind of emotions come up whenever you are dealing with a heavy logistical challenge or working through things or trying to figure something out or you're meeting some sort of adversity. Your financial health, paying attention to where you spend your money and where you're putting your money and how that impacts the quality or lack of quality of your health is going to be super important. And your existential health, paying attention to what kind of spiritual practice that you're taking part in that helps keep you centered. It could be meditation, it could be prayer, it could be journaling, it could be getting out in the outdoors. So I think I got all 7. I'm going to repeat them again. Physical, your physical domain, your mental domain, your emotional domain, your environmental domain, your existential, and your financial domain. And why do I feel like I'm missing one more?
Did you say spiritual?
I did. I said existential. It's
existential,
yeah. We've got physical, we've got emotional, we've got mental, we've got environmental, we got social, we got financial, and we've got existential. So those are all 7.
Perfect. Well, Patrick, let me put your information back up. If you are, Patrick's website is under construction. So if you want to get in touch with him, hit him up on his Instagram or send him a private email. All of his work is remote, so you can start working with him immediately. And anything that I'm missing, Patrick?
I don't think so. Yeah, feel free to connect with me on Instagram. Always looking forward to meeting new people and having some great conversations. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Awesome. And so for the person who asked about the time audit and whether you do mine, or not, it doesn't matter to me. As long as I get this message across to you, I promise you that all your deepest desires, all your goals, all your dreams, everything you want in life is a matter of prioritizing. And in order to do that, you have to prioritize your time. Here's the thumbnail, if you would like it, but most of you are probably on your phone. And the last thing is, if you just stumbled upon this, wait, there we go. If you just stumbled upon us on social media, if you go here to this link or scan the QR code, you're going to become part of our community. You're going to get access to every Empower Hour, and we have amazing guests like Patrick every week. You're also going to get my Soulful Prosperity Toolkit. You're going to get access to activations, meditations, all kinds of tools that are going to empower you to level up. And I'm talking to you high achievers, right? We think that we reach a certain level of success and then that's kind of it. And we start that conversation of, I just don't have the time. I guarantee you there are so many levels to the human experience and so many ways that you can expand and grow and thrive and find more joy, more freedom, more abundance, more prosperity. And I am so grateful to be able to be the guide to many on this experience. So thank you so much, Patrick, for being here.
Thank you.
And everybody have a fantastic Friday and a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next week with my good friend, Mitzi Campbell, who's going to be teaching us the art of podcasting. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.